My microphone. There it goes. Ladies and gentlemen, technical issues aside, welcome to the Geeks and Noobs Podcast. I am Super Beard Vince Hoover, joined as always by Kel McCosbraid, and our wonderful special guest today, Ming Chen. Now, many of you might know him from Comic Book Men, but there's so many other things as well that we know him from and love him from. So, Ming, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, of course. And I'm a Ming Chen, no beard Chen. I can't grow facial hair, so I'm very jealous of both of you. You guys are well on your way to Brian Johnson beard status.
That's our goal.
That is a goal. It's a goal.
Yeah, that's nothing to sneeze at. So
Yeah.
So I'm very jealous. So this past weekend, you guys know I go to a lot of Comic Cons, right? So
Yes.
all over the world. This week I was off, but it's funny when I'm not at a con, what do I do on my off weekend? I go to a con, and I went to a con called Christmas Con. It was so it's a con based on all those cheesy Hallmark Christmas shows. You guys familiar with the
Yes.
Hallmark?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
With like Lacey Chabert and like Melissa Joan Hart, like Sabrina Witch. And I was like, what? It was here in Jersey. I'm like, all right, I'll go check it out. I was like, what is this con all about? And it was mobbed, my friends. This con was almost busier than most of the cons I go to, like the Comic Cons. And it was all like pretty white boys with beards. And the audience, the mobs of audience were all like housewives from New Jersey, New York, Connecticut that want to come out and meet like Mario Lopez or Chad Michael Murray, like these pretty boys. And it was eye-opening for sure. So my goal now is to get on one of those Hallmark Christmas shows so I can go to Christmas Con next year, be featured as a guest, get adored by housewives and I saw like grandmothers. And they're mean, man. Like if you go and talk to them and you're taking too much time, they'll yell at you. They're like, hey, move along, you're hogging the line.
Wow.
I'm like, yeah. But I think my favorite person there, I went there personally to meet Danica McKellar, who a lot of people know as Winnie Cooper.
Yeah.
Winnie Cooper, Wonder Years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like most if you were born in the 80s or late 70s, a lot of guys' first crushes for sure. So that was cool. She was very cool. So no clue who I was, which was fine. It's usual. But it would have been cool if she was like, "Oh man, aren't you that guy from Comic Book Men?" Like, I think I had like a 1 in 10 shot, but it didn't. Yeah, she had no idea who I was. So she did. I posted a photo of us on Twitter though, and she retweeted it. She's like, "Hey, great meeting you." So that was cool.
That's good.
She didn't do that for everybody. So
No.
yeah, I think she likes me.
Keep that in mind. She's also, by the way, an incredibly smart human being.
Oh yeah,
Has written so many books on mathematics.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Books. She might have a doctorate. Doesn't matter. She's just she's a genius for sure.
Yeah.
So, I like the nerdy, brainy chicks. So that definitely
Who
fits.
doesn't?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Kel, I would love for you to tell the story of how you actually met Ming and kind of hook this whole thing up, because I think it's an awesome story, and it's not something that, like, I'm used to like New York Comic Con and like Orlando MegaCon and like San Diego Comic Con, where they're huge events, but they're also kind of like strict and narrow. And what you got to do in Nashville is pretty awesome. So go ahead and tell that story.
Yeah. It was actually in Gatlinburg, Tennessee.
That's right.
And but yeah, I decided to go to Smoky Mountain Fan Fest for the second year in a row. And the first year was pretty good. They had a lot of good celebrities there and everything. But then, I saw that they were going to have Ming and they're going to have former Power Rangers actors, which I adored watching as a kid in the 90s and everything. And I went there. I went in my Green Lantern cosplay, my OC character that I come up with. And, we're just walking around. We're checking everything out with my wife and my daughter and her soon-to-be husband. And we're, like I said, we're just walking around, and then, I turn around and Ming is walking up to me and says, "This is an awesome cosplay, man." And I was just like, wow, Ming come to me to compliment me. That was just the thrill of the day for me. It really was, man.
You look great. You're great. You don't see a lot of high, quality Green Lantern cosplays.
No,
so well done.
Thank you. I mean, I'm not the biggest Hal Jordan, I'm not the biggest Hal Jordan fan, but I do like
I am.
what the Green Lantern Corps represents.
Right. I mean, you could have been Kyle Rayner. You could have been Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
For all I knew. So, but Hal
Well,
Jordan.
I'm a little white complected to be Jon Stewart, so
Yeah,
right. But interpretation, it's attitude.
exactly. Yeah,
Attitude,
that's true.
for sure.
It's true.
So, yeah.
And plus, I think my wife would kill me if I shaved my head. So
That's probably not a good idea. But,
yeah. She likes the hair.
Yeah.
But
well, you were better than Ryan Reynolds in the Green Lantern movie. So
yeah,
this is true. I mean that suit. Ugh.
But
yeah,
I think
now
what's even better about that story is what you guys got to do afterwards.
Yeah,
with the moonshine thing. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, what that was, it was advertised on the con's website that you get to go on a moonshine tasting with Walter Jones, who played Zach Taylor, the original Black Ranger in Power Rangers, for the first I'm gonna say 1.5 seasons, because he was only in the second season for like a half of it before they brought in.
But he's OG, man. Like
he's OG. I mean, he's my first Black Ranger. No pun intended. But yeah, we started tasting it, and everybody was a little uptight at first because we're fans, and these are celebrities. And then not too long of that, a couple other people came around that was at the con. I can't remember the woman's name from.
Oh, Felissa Rose was there from.
Felissa Rose, that's it. Yes.
Yeah.
From Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah, gorgeous horror icon.
Yes.
For sure,
absolutely.
and just a great person. She came, and then the guy who played Doofy from Scary Movie.
Yeah.
So we're drinking with Walter Jones, Doofy, and Felissa Rose, and maybe like 40 other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. I don't know if you've ever been to a moonshine tasting, Super Beard, but it's pretty epic. So yeah, it's the guy's running it very personable. It's at a moonshine distillery, which Gatlinburg's full of.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, hey, we're gonna have a great time. We're gonna be tasting about 12 moonshines, and so they just keep pouring them. Like,
yeah, I think
for like an hour.
I think normally they do about 8.
Yeah, but they expanded.
Yeah, they extended us because we have celebrity guests with us.
So there's like Nilla wafer moonshine. There's like salty caramel moonshine. Like all these weird, but very delicious
vanilla wafers.
Flavors. There and it was pretty amazing. And it was kind of, it was kind of not. I guess you said uptight, but at first just kind of like, oh, we're here. But I think by the third shot in,
that's when everybody really
we were all
started,
family.
Like, hey,
my
let's
friend.
get in here. Let's have a good
we're like,
time,
hey,
guys.
like it was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
we were all like family by that point.
Yeah, and I really appreciated that you let me do the video with you that I sent to my friend who is a huge Kevin Smith fan, and he used to live in Jersey, but now he's migrated to Nashville.
Right.
So I sent him a little toast video of us doing a shot, and it was. Oh, he was so jealous. He didn't talk to me for like a few days after that.
Oh yeah, well we were pretty toasty by then, and by the time you hit like number 7 and 8, all over we got our arms with each other.
I was like, we're gonna be best friends forever.
Yeah, and mind you, this is like 7:30. I think it started at 7, so like 7:30 at night. Yeah, so we're just it's like pre-gaming. It was like hardcore pre-game. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was.
That is fantastic.
And by the way, we're not getting paid to say this, but Old Smoky Moonshine is the best.
Oh yeah. Old Smoky, good
Smoky,
stuff, man.
I have to give that a shot. You'll have to send me some.
All right.
I don't know if I can get it down here in Florida because we're America's jockstrap, so I don't know what we can get. But so for anybody who doesn't know of Ming, most famously known for the Comic Book Men series that was on AMC out of Kevin Smith's Secret Stash comic book store with Brian Johnson, yourself, and several others. Wonderful show. You've also been kind of a part of the View Askewniverse. You were an extra in the greatest religious movie of all time, Dogma.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be yourself in Jay and Silent Bob's reboot, which, by the way, was amazing.
Yeah.
You've been a producer, an actor, a podcaster. You're now doing your own podcasting. I believe you also own your own comic book store or something.
No, I have a whole studio. It's a podcast studio. No, I'm through a weird series of events. I became one of 5 partners in a geek-themed coffee shop in Houston, Texas.
That's what it was. Geek-themed
That's
comic
awesome.
Yeah, called Coral Sword. Coral Sword is a reference to a very powerful weapon in the first Final Fantasy video game. So, very strong against water-based creatures. So, That's yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, I have a problem sitting still, and the nice thing about it is when you can't sit still and you can't sleep, you go and do fun things. So it's all about
Yeah.
having fun for sure. And podcasting is definitely fun. I mean, you both know that. If you're
Yeah.
watching or listening to this, you know that as well. And yeah, I'm constantly just trying to have fun, I think. So
See, and that's one thing that whenever I talked about meeting you after the con, like you said, you've been touring all over the nation, even going international, and uh, you know that's the one thing I said, that you were so easy to talk to, and it's because you're a fan.
right.
You're not just a celebrity that does TV shows and goes on radio and podcasts and stuff like that. You're a fan first.
I think it makes the experience much more fun. I'm sure some of these big guys who are in Star Wars, they're just kind of like, all right, these
Yeah.
these fans are crazy, and I want to meet them, but I don't know if they appreciate the full experience like I do. A guy who grew up going to low rent Comic Cons at in church basements at the Elks Lodge. The big one I went to when I was a kid, they would do a monthly kind of comic book show at the mall. So you'd go to like the food court, and there would be maybe 3 or 4 weird comic book vendors with long boxes, and that's where you would get back issues that your local shop didn't have. You would wait for these guys at the mall to set up. So I loved it though. I live for those shows because that's all we had. Other than the one local shop we had, that's all we had to get comics. That's where we could get stuff that we couldn't normally get. And then, gradually as I grew bigger, I followed along and I was like, whoa, wait. There's one that's like, wait, they're taking over a whole convention center. There's like actual vendors. There's more than there are like vendors from all over the country. Like this is what's going on here?
Yeah.
And I slowly realized that the Comic Cons were getting not just big, but like huge. Like they grew exponentially, and to the point where the ones I would go to were maybe they'd be from like noon to 5 on a Saturday, and now all of a sudden they're 3 days. They take up 3 days, and the guests. I remember some of these cons in the beginning. They'd be like, "Oh, meet Gopher from the Love Boat." I was like, "Gopher? He's still alive?" Like that was that show came out 30 years ago. But cool, I'll go meet him. His autograph would be like $5-10, and it would be a cool experience. But then they started getting people like in current shows, like holy crap, like John Boyega and Daisy Ridley is going to be at this con, like holy crap. Michael J. Fox is going to be at a con, like holy crap, like they're getting icons, and you can meet them even for a few seconds, like that's totally worth it. So it to see that grow, that made me really happy. And but in the back of my head, I was like, I've been going to these things forever, so I appreciate it. And I remember when that's all we had, and then all of a sudden they're like, they're mainstream and they're huge, and it was like 100,000 people going to them. So I remember waiting in line. I remember buying admission. I think the first big name that I remember, like I was like, oh man, I can't wait to meet him, was James O'Barr, who was the creator of The Crow, and the movie had just come out. So I was like, oh man, I want to meet this guy. He was from Michigan. Well, I lived in Michigan, so yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I remember waiting in line. I was really nervous. Like, what do I say to this guy? Like, I don't know him. Like, oh, hey man, great comic. Like, I love the movie. Like, he's heard that a million times before. But that's pretty much what I said to him, which was cool. That was way back in 1996. But then, cut to, a couple years ago, I'm at a con with him, and we're at like an after party. We're eating steaks with each other, and we both got invited to this convention. It was just weird, coming from a fan, and now, I'm kind of, you're an invited guest with these guys. It's very cool though. It's very cool. So, but going back, like I think I appreciate it more than the normal, convention guest or convention goer, and I think that's more fun for me for sure. But I remember what it was like on the other side of the table, waiting in line. It's like, oh man, this is someone I've seen on TV or read their comics. are they going to be cool? Is this going to be a fun interaction? Am I going to remember this? You know, how am I going to remember this at the end? So I always want to give a really great experience, as if I was going to go, I guess, meet myself, I guess.
Yeah.
And you know, like, what would it be if I were, you know, if I was waiting to meet Ming Chen? So, yeah, I always want to give that experience. Plus, we're both into the same thing, so you know, automatically we're friends. You know, if
Yeah.
you're down with the force, you know
Yes.
about flux capacitors, you
One
you
point
know,
21 gigawatts.
yeah, you know, you know, we know that we don't want to serve time on the wall, you know, up, you know,
Mhm.
or you know, we both want to be the king of the north, right? So
Yeah.
Exactly.
automatically we relate to all
Exactly.
that. So I think it's pretty cool. And you know, not for nothing, but you know, when I was back in the day, you know, you guys remember this wasn't cool. No one, you didn't
No.
tell anyone you read comics, right? You
Yeah.
know, it wasn't cool. That didn't get you any dates. That didn't, you know, and people would laugh at you for, you know, for loving. That's even, yeah, I love it now. Everyone's like, oh, I love Star Wars. I love Star Wars. Wasn't always like that.
Yeah. I
If
liked
I
Star
mentioned-
Wars before it was cool.
Yeah, if I mentioned them in the late '80s, early '90s,
Mhm.
people are like, you still watch Star Wars? Like that
Yeah.
movie came out years ago. Like you should have outgrown, you know, guys in robes and lightsabers, laser swords. I'm like, no, man. I watch that whole trilogy at least once or twice a year. Me and my
Yeah.
friends, we quote it. We, you know, you know, we're driving in the car, like, all right, we're gonna launch this into hyperspace. Yeah, so you know, it wasn't cool. So now to walk into a building where there are 100,000 people who don't give me a blank stare when I talk about adamantium, or you know, the danger room, or you know, or you know, or you know, Ra's al Ghul or Clayface. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome.
I remember growing up, and I remember in the '80s when the Star Trek conventions were kind of starting to get like big enough to get national exposure.
Yeah,
And you heard about Trekkies, but they were still kind of, it was still kind of like, even on the news reports, you could tell the reporters were kind of like
like
passively
ugh.
aggressively taking stabs at it.
Yep.
But I grew up, you know, my mother was a huge Trekkie, and we were big into Star Wars, and my dad to this day still swears up and down he actually wrote Spaceballs.
I believe him.
And I'm
I
like,
believe
all right, Dad. But like, I grew up in a very like open household, but it was definitely not like it is now, where geek is chic, you know, now. But it's one of those things too that I look at it like, it took us a long time to get here, but I'm glad we're here, and I
Yeah,
love what we can do.
Yeah, yeah, I love it, and I think I get this question a lot. There, you know, people are like, they're like, I've gotten the question like, are you mad now that you know that these people came late? You know, like, oh, I'm a geek now too. You know, whereas we had to suffer. You know, we got chased around the playground, we got called names. You know, we were, you know, largely ignored.
Hmm.
Like, well, you know, are you mad at these people? Just, you know, it's like, oh, I saw a Marvel movie. Now I'm a geek now, and to me, I'm like, no, I'm not mad. It's more people to the party, man. I always welcome more people. I mean, I just think it's funny now that the people who used to make fun of me back in the day, now they're like, we'll be at cocktail parties or somewhere, like, hey, so you know, Doctor Strange's origin, you know, was it like, is it, you know, is a movie, is that canon? Like, is that, you know, is that how it was in the comics? Sit down. Let me educate you here. So, you know, they're coming to us, and people coming to people like us to be like, oh man, you know, who is that person we saw in the end credits scene, or you know, like, did this happen in the comics, or you know, it's pretty cool being, you know, now we're you know, we're the official source, which
Yeah,
is
we're the elders that the younglings come
We
to
are,
for
yeah.
knowledge.
Well, that's literally like what the Geeks and Noobs is for. It's
Yep.
an all-inviting, all-encompassing community.
Yeah.
This podcast is that whether you're a noob or a geek, because the thing is that noob could be a geek in something else that,
Oh yeah,
you know, it's a balancing act too. So
Yeah,
while
for
we
sure.
we are now able to take this passion that we love and educate others and bring them into the fold, they in turn can do the same for us in something that maybe
Yep.
we're not immersed in.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
it's a great thing. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, as somebody who is a convention connoisseur, what is like one of the craziest memories you have from being at a convention, whether it be as a fan or as a guest?
I mean, just for me, it's just you know, every so often I'll run into like a high profile guest who, you know, I was nervous to talk to, and then it turns out they're a fan. They've seen the show, which, like, that's mind blowing. It's like, wait, I watched you. I've worshipped you for years. Like, you saw what I like, something I was in, and you like it, like that's crazy. I think the biggest one was Jeffrey Dean Morgan from Walking Dead.
Oh
From
yeah.
Oh
Watchmen.
man.
Some people
Oh,
know
I've
him.
actually I've seen him in a couple interviews mention that show.
Yeah, and he was at a Walking Dead convention that we would get regularly invited to because we came weird afterwards. But I think it was one of the first ones he was attending, so it was a pretty big deal. He's a pretty profile actor, but his character Negan very memorable. So like everyone in the convention center wants to meet him. But I remember I was walking I was taking a shortcut to the convention center. He was out this back door smoking a cigarette, and I was like, oh man, there he is. Like, wow, look at him. He's look how manly he is. Beard like you guys, and he's holy crap, man. It's a comedian. Come to life. I was like, oh man, should I go say hi to him? I was like, oh, I don't know, man. I didn't want to bother him, but I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Go say hi to him. And I went. I was like, hey man, how's it going? Like, my name's Ming. Comic book man. We are after you. Blah blah blah. Like, like all the. I was spewing out stuff, and he's looking at me. He's like, Ming, I know who you are. Watch the show. I love the show. And I was like, what? He's like, and I was like, okay, he's just saying that. Maybe he caught an ad or something. But he was like, no, man, I just saw that episode where you were with Ralph Macchio. Like, that was awesome, man. The Karate Kid, like, he taught you how to wax on, wax off. What a great episode. I was like, holy shit, man. Like, he watches the show, and he kind of explained to me, he's like, dude, I'm a geek like you, man. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, I love this stuff, man. I all the stuff you're into, like, I really, all the stuff that you guys talk about on the show, like, I'm into that too. Like, dude, it was great. It's a great meeting. I was like, holy crap. Like, my mind was totally blown because, a big fan of The Watchmen. Obviously, I thought his comedian was probably the best character in the movie for sure.
Yeah.
He did a great job. And then, Walking Dead, he, maybe not comic book accurate in looks, but in tone, he totally nailed Negan.
Absolutely.
Yeah, his attitude was spot on.
Yeah, every so often, you'll run into just somebody, a guest that you really admire, and like that for me, that's my most mind-blowing experience. Con-wise, I love meeting like the little kids who are into the show. I've been meeting a lot of like 4 and 5-year-olds who, like, for whatever reason, I guess they love comic book, man. I guess it's sort of all ages ish. Brian Johnson, Walt, they get a little bit questionable, maybe ranging to PG-13 territory, but for the most part, the parents will let their kids watch it for sure. But although I find parents are much more lenient these days, so I've met kids who watch like Rick and Morty, Game of Thrones. Like, they're it's good parenting in my book. If they ask questions, answer them, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up watching R-rated movies, as a kid because my parents were like, we're with them.
Yeah, look at us, we're good.
Yeah.
We turned out okay.
Yeah,
Sort of.
Yeah, sort of. For whatever it is. But I wanted to ask you
Debatable.
also. I wanted to ask you about Comic Book Men specifically because you guys were on for 7 seasons.
Yeah.
That's big in no matter what kind of TV show you have. 7 seasons is a good run.
Yeah, I don't even think of it like that though. Sometimes I have to like, oh man, we got a lot of episodes. Like it was so much fun. It went really quick. And
That's kind of what I wanted to ask you. Like,
yeah, you can tell we're having fun on the show, but you hear about these other reality shows like, oh man, they were fighting, like two of the guys didn't really talk to each other, like it was all kind of made up for the show. And yeah, no, it was fun. I mean, if you boil it down, I got to work, I got to sit in Kevin's comic book shop joking around with my friends, and they put it on TV for 96 episodes. Yeah, I mean, if there were a complaint at all, is that I was like, wait, we got canceled? Like, we should have ran forever, right?
I agree.
I always thought, as long as there was pop culture and toys and movies, which there always will be, that we could have run, until that ended, which, that I don't think we'll ever have a shortage of that. If anything, it's getting bigger. So yeah, so that, that stinks, but who knows? We may come back one day.
I remember when I started watching the show on streaming, or no, I think I had it on DVR at the time.
Yeah.
And I go back and rewatch episodes on it, and my wife would sit down and watch it with me. She's not as nerdy as I am, but she is very open to it. She's not against it or anything like that. Thankfully,
okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, just for references, we had a Doctor Who themed wedding.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. and
Right.
our friends built us a TARDIS and everything like that. But
Awesome.
we started watching Comic Book Man, and she would get into it a little bit, and it's
Yeah.
like, I think the little guy is my favorite character.
Oh, thank you. Please.
Yeah, and that was before we met you too.
Right. Yeah.
And then as more we watched, she's like, I don't like him. I'm like, who, Walter? It's like, yeah, he's always mean to Ming.
Yeah.
It's
It's not that not that far from real life.
Because they always gave you so much crap on the show.
They're all idiots and they're all assholes, but they're my friends.
Exactly.
We all have those friends that you put up with them.
Yeah, those are some of your best friends you'll have for life. Is the ones that treat you like shit.
They're jerks.
But
I hear on the East Coast in New Jersey, like that's how we show love for each other.
Exactly. I was getting ready to say it's New Jersey, man. Like that's just par for the course.
Yeah, and in the end, like when your friends screw up and you don't give them shit, like they're gonna do it again. So, and you know what? Maybe they probably will do it again, which makes it funny.
Yeah.
Which is, so you on them again, like it's great. It's ball busting, making fun. Like it's a sport out here, my friends. Like this is how we live. This is how we communicate. This is how we show love for each other. So, but what I didn't realize was in the Midwest, the Bible Belt, like the East Coast, LA. It like they don't do that out there, so it seems mean, right? It's like, oh man, you guys are so. Do you even like each other? Like, no, you don't get it. Like this is how we. When you love somebody, like this is what you do. And I had to educate people on that.
Ball busting is like a Hallmark card. It's just how you show love.
Right. Right. Instead of I love you, I can't wait to see you. Like you suck and get out of my face. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Until
also those are the people that are going to bend over backwards to help you in a time of need.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And not the people who are just fake to your face. And totally. I think that's what's great about it. I think it's what's great about Comic Book Men too is, it fell under reality, but most reality shows aren't even close to reality. Whereas Comic Book Men was it was you guys getting filmed doing what you do no matter what.
Yeah, and it was funny. People would come in and they're like, "Wait, you guys actually work here?" I'm like, "Yeah, like like, we shoot the show 2 months out of the year. Like we got to eat the other 10 months." So, we worked here before. We worked during. And we're gonna work after. So you want a photo or not? Like it's like yeah. So isn't this what you came here to see? Like us like working, like ringing you up? Well, here we are. So but it would surprise them. I think like shows like Pawn Stars or all those other shows, like they don't even work there anymore. They're off.
No, I actually
never there.
When I left the Army, I drove back from Seattle to Florida, and we took the southern route, so we went through Vegas. And we're like, we'll stop at Pawn Stars.
Yeah.
And sure enough, yes, it is the pawn shop they shoot in, but there's literally a roped off area. You can't even go in, and they're not there. We happened to meet Rick Harris because he was there, or Harrison because he was there shooting a TV commercial, but otherwise they're never there. It's just merchandise. Yeah. And so it's like, oh, that kind of, and I haven't watched the show since because it kind of like killed the magic of it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm like, that's no fun.
But I knew, like, because I go to New York Comic Con every year now since 2019, I knew that I got to get over to New Jersey one of my trips up there because I want to get over to Secret Stash because I know that when I walk in, it's going to be exactly what I expect. It's not going to be anything fake. And I am for sure. This year I've made a promise to myself that this year when I go, I will definitely be there. Are you going to hit New York Comic Con?
I'll be there. I go every year. So this year I was only there for a little bit. I kind of screwed up my dates and I had to be at another convention. But yeah, that's a tradition. I usually go all 4 days, get there early. Listen, I got to get exclusives too. Like I haven't changed. So I need exclusive Funko Pop figures as well. So yeah, I'll be there for sure. Yeah, definitely stop down. You're a 1 hour train ride away. Yeah. You can walk to the store once you exit the train in Red Bank. We'll podcast. You can come to the podcast studio.
Yes, please. Sure. That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Because also this year, and I haven't told Kel this yet, but since you're here, I want to tell in front of you, I'm already planning that Kel comes along this year to New York Comic Con.
Yes.
Because we got to October, so I'm working on it to where I'm gonna make sure Kel gets to come along too.
It'll change your life, my friend. It'll change your life. And then we'll keep the party going in Red Bank. So then you got the store. Come to the store after. We'll podcast together. It'll be a whole weekend. It'll be a whole week. So
yeah, it'll be great. We'll do that.
After parties, man, it's gonna be great.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So I wanted to announce that I've never been north of Kentucky before.
Well,
you're in for it. You're in for it,
my friend.
But
it's not like you're 6,000 miles away. It's like what 320 miles.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Come on, man.
It'll be
Come
good.
on.
And trust me, New York is an experience. The city truly is alive. I love New York City. New Jersey's great too. I usually fly into LaGuardia.
Yeah.
But considering I'm gonna take you along, I may drive up again because I drove the first year I went. That's a nice, fun drive, even from Florida. It's a 16-hour drive, but it's fun. So I'll sleep in Nashville and then or in Tennessee, and then we'll leave from there and pick you up, and we'll go. We'll spend the week up there. We'll have a blast, and we'll go see Ming, and we'll go see the store, and we'll go have a great time.
It'll be unforgettable, my friend.
I think it's gonna be a great time. I wanted to ask you one more thing about the show before I jump into other stuff that you're doing, because I really want to dive more into your podcasting as well. But you guys had some pretty cool celebrity guests. You already mentioned Ralph Macchio. Like my favorite's Method Man.
Oh yeah,
because
he was awesome.
you don't think, but if you really break down Wu-Tang Clan, their entire gimmick is all geeky. They're all very much like kung fu nerds and comic nerds and whatnot. But you have to you don't really think about it until you really break down their lyrics. But Method Man is one of the biggest geeks out there. Who were some of your favorites to work with, like Ralph and Method? And
we gotta mention Stan Lee, but we also have to take him out of the running because he's cooler than
that doesn't count.
Cooler than anybody.
It's meeting a god. It's just like you gotta step him up here.
He's at another level for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ralph Method Man was great. Adam West was awesome. We got him maybe 6 months before he passed away. He was great. Personal favorite, Lindsay Wagner, the Bionic Woman. Like I never, I watched that show when I was a kid. Like I never thought we'd be hanging out with her. And I never thought we'd be inviting her on our TV show. So that was, she was very kind of. Jim Lee, the artist Jim Lee, my favorite comic book artist, came in, definitely had a great time, for sure. Robert Englund, definitely very iconic guest, great storyteller, just fun, great attitude. I mentioned I was at the Christmas con. Katrina Law, who was on Arrow, and she's also in three of the Hallmark Christmas movies. She was really amazing. Yeah, we got so many people that we have so many people that I was like, oh yeah, he was on our show. That was awesome. The guy played Tom Cavanaugh played the Reverse Flash.
Yeah,
love Tom. I love him.
Yeah, for sure.
So good.
We just got like countless amount of people. Peter Mayhew and Billy D. Williams definitely, since I'm
Billy D. Williams,
Star Wars fan, and that really boils down to like if you told yourself as a kid, it's like, hey, one day Chewbacca and Lando Calrissian are gonna come down, and you're gonna hang out with them on TV, like you wouldn't like that. That just sounds made up.
No way.
Yeah, but they did. It was pretty cool. So.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
it's such an experience. But now, like I said, the show has unfortunately got canceled, which I don't even understand why. It doesn't make any sense to me,
I don't
especially with the growth that we've got.
I don't either. Not up to me, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't even think it was up to Kevin, to be honest. It's definitely a studio business, somebody who doesn't understand what's going on, kind of thing. But I digress. But you like you said, you have a podcast studio now, and you've really gotten into doing that kind of stuff. What led you to podcasting, and is it everything you expected it to be, or has it been even better?
That was all Kevin. Originally, I just helped him produce and record and upload his shows, which is like what I was pretty much what I do in life. Is I run the technical back end for whatever anybody needs. But that's what I was doing for Kevin for years, over 20 years. Never thought or had the desire to jump behind a microphone until he made me do it. So it's like, hey, I have like 4 shows. I want to expand into a network, and they can't all be shows with me because I have so many. I'm asking, I'm trying to get all my friends to start so we can start a whole network. So that's pretty much how like the podcast Tell 'em Steve Dave was birthed. He's like, hey, Walt and Brian, you guys are great when you're on my show. You guys should start your own show. So that's taken off. That's gotten huge. But he asked me to do one as well. So that's how I started way back in 2010. And I was like, what am I going to talk about? He's like, well, what do you love? I'm like, I don't know, Star Wars, comics, food, Comic-Cons. He's like, talk about that. That's a podcast. And I didn't believe him at first until me and Mike Zapsik from Comic Book Man recorded that first episode. And it was just so much fun, and we flowed really well. It sounded real. Like I played it back. I was like, wow, this sounds like a real, like if they put this on the radio, I would listen to it. You know, if I was driving or commuting, like I would listen to this. But I was like, I don't have any training. Like I didn't go to radio school. Why but this sounds good. And it just kind of boiled down to we were talking about what we loved. And anybody who talks about something that they loved and they've dedicated years to it, they're an expert. So Star Wars, I've seen Star Wars, countless times. I've probably seen it more than George Lucas has at this point. He's probably sick of watching it. So,
Probably.
so I feel like, I would consider myself an ex-Star Wars expert. If you boil that down into certain topics that you talk about on a podcast, you're going to sound pretty good about it because you've devoted so much time and passion to it. So, and once I realized that, I was like, wait, if I can do it, anybody else can do it. And if anybody else can do it, anybody else should be doing this. It's just such a great way to express yourself. It's a great way, if you have a business, it's a great way to market it. If you have an event, it's a great way to get your word out there. If you have any kind of message, you should be podcasting. So, I think we're pretty much hitting that point where people are realizing that. And so I started a studio because I was like, all right, there's still a learning curve. You still got to get gear. There's some technical aspects you have to research, and if you've met people who don't, who can barely use their iPhones. Like they're not gonna, that's hard for them. And I was like, why don't? I was like, well, it's easy for guys like me. We've been doing this for years. Why not open a place where they just gotta come over and just sit down and talk? Like just boil it down to what they really, their own content. So that's why we opened up a studio, and it's been going pretty well. So we're about to hit our 5th year. So
that's really awesome.
Yeah.
That's also one thing because I started going back after we met after the con and listening to the Ming and Mike show and I Sell Comics. And what really surprised me about Mike is that when you watch Comic Book Man, he's very subdued and he doesn't really talk unless he's spoken to.
Right.
And it was like, hey, Mike, what was Iron Man's first nemesis in what issue?
Yeah,
and this
who drew that panel on issue 166 panel page 3? 4th panel. I was like, oh yeah, Neil or Bob Layton drew that version.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But when you actually listen to Mike on y'all's older podcasts and stuff, he's more open than he was on the show. And
for sure.
His attitude switches like in between himself and Brian Johnson.
Oh yeah, he's got a temper at times. He can get very opinionated on the weirdest topics, but I think we play off each other very well because
I really do. I really enjoyed him. I mean,
we'll work off each other very well. But then every so often he'll be like, "Oh man," he's like, "Oh man, I hate George Clooney." I'm like, "Clooney? Why do you hate Clooney? What?" And he'll go off on why he hates George Clooney. I'm like, "That's odd. Have
you watched Batman and Robin?"
That wasn't his fault. Of course, it's gonna be.
No, that wasn't his fault. He
read the words on the page. He ran around in all that neon and the
nipples,
whatever. Yeah, and he got paid, so I can't blame him too much for that.
And he does take. I got to give him a lot of credit actually, because he takes a lot of the fall for that. Like he's like, "I'm sorry, I almost killed the franchise. It was just there was so much more I could have done, but like I'm like, dude, it wasn't all you. I mean, it's mainly the director and the writer. Like, you just got to do what they tell you to do. But yeah, he does. I'll give him a lot of credit because he doesn't like try to like defend it at all. He's just like, nah, it was bad. I'm sorry. And I appreciate that. It's funny because that's kind of what led, I know him and Ben Affleck had a conversation before Ben Affleck took the first Batman role for Dawn of Justice. And it's interesting to see people, again, because like taking a Batman role, they used Michael Keaton, who was a comedian. And they took a chance and created one of the most iconic films of all time.
Yeah, they knew they saw something in him, and we saw Mr. Mom, they saw Bruce Wayne, and thank God they did. So
absolutely.
But even then, you think about Christopher Reeves and Superman. He was not really that kind of actor. Like he was more of like a soap opera actor, more of a theater guy, and they kind of took a chance on him.
Yeah, so I think when anyone was like, "Oh man, why'd they cast him?" I was like, "They're actors."
Yeah,
if they're good actors, they can do anything. And
exactly.
thank goodness,
Mhm.
they nailed those roles for sure.
Yeah, they made him iconic. Like I got into comic books because of the first Superman film.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really, as a kid, I was, probably 4 years old when I saw it the first time, and I'm like, that's who I want to be. Like, that's amazing. And Christopher Reeve really embodied both Clark Kent and Superman
No,
to a
I
T.
believed a man could fly. So
Yeah,
yeah, it was great.
exactly.
And then Superman 2 came out, it was even better. Like, oh man. Yeah.
Yeah, and even as a kid, I'm like, oh, this is great. And now as an adult, I'm like, oh, it wasn't that great. Then I bought the Richard Donner cut. I'm like, oh,
Yep.
so this is what it was supposed to be,
Yep.
and
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is phenomenal.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
this is so good.
Yeah.
But even then, I even remember when 3 and 4 came out, like when Richard Pryor in 3, I loved it at the time.
Yeah.
At the time when it came, like, I loved it at the time. And even the fourth one, I was like, this is kind of cool. This is different. Nuclear
Yeah.
Man, all right.
Right.
And you had Gene Hackman back as Lex Luthor, which
Yeah.
I think still an underrated role for him.
Oh, sure. Big time. Big time. Yeah, he set the table, man.
Yeah. So it's great to see people kind of come out of their shell, but now we live in a world like you said, it's just like it's exploding. Look at the MCU.
Yep.
Look at what we now have James Gunn signed on to lead DCU, so I have so much hope for DC here coming up.
I think it'd be great. I've always said
Yeah.
that once he took over Suicide Squad, I'm like, dude, just let him do everything else. He's obviously very good at it. He's a fan. He's a geek.
Yeah.
And I know people are freaking out right now. It's like, oh well, no Henry Cavill as Superman. I was like, just wait. I think they have something planned. I don't think he's totally gone yet.
They
I
also
think-
explained
yeah.
why
Yeah.
they're taking everything back to a younger time, an
Right.
earlier time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Henry Cavill, he got the short end of the stick not because of anything he did, it's because DC took so long to bring him back.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
not on him. That's Warner Brothers, and that's a whole different
no,
thing.
we,
And
we, we should have had another Superman movie years ago. So
yes.
Yeah.
But
But-
everyone's complaining about DC. Is like, all right, the only way you're gonna make it Marvel level, you got to start. You got to
Start
dial
fresh.
it back and start fresh again. And I think James is the man to do it. I believe in James Gunn fully.
Absolutely. He's also willing to take chances. Like we know that Aquaman 2 will be the end of Jason Momoa's Aquaman, and rumored, but seemingly Lobo.
He's gonna be a great Lobo.
And not only, but who
He's
else would
great.
take a chance besides James Gunn on a character like Lobo?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we all know Lobo's awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Cannot wait. There's so much coming up. We got so many things coming up. As like you said, you've been doing the convention circuit for a long time, and I don't want to take up too much of your time here tonight. What conventions do you have coming up here soon? Like come
Got
first
some
of the
cool
year?
ones coming up. So I'm trying to hit all 50 states, and I'm missing 6
Okay.
right now. So I'm gonna cross 2 of those off my list in 2023. Alaska is the big one. Anchorage,
Ooh.
Alaska.
Wow.
The kind up there called Arctic Comic Con. There'll be, I think this is their 4th year, so they've been running for a while successfully. And I met the promoter years ago in Seattle, and we talked. But this year was like, hey man, you want to come out? And I'm like, I absolutely want to come out. So that was cool. There's a con starting in Casper, Wyoming, which I'm excited about. Like Wyoming, I didn't even think that state really existed, so we're about to find out. That'll be cool. But they're usual ones I go to. Pensacon in Pensacola is a really, really well-run con.
When is that one?
It is last weekend of February, and if you can make it to Pensacola, I highly recommend it.
I'm
awesome.
not Pensacola. It's weird because I'm in Florida and I'm in northern central Florida,
Yeah.
but Pensacola is still technically like 6 hours away.
Yeah, it's
even
always
though it's
that
the same
one-
state.
I think
but-
there in
Yeah,
Tallahassee and like Panama
But
City, Jacksonville,
end
they're
of
always
February.
Yeah, definitely
be
look
there.
into it. Definitely look into
I'll
it.
be there.
Not only will I be there, but pretty much the whole Clerks 3 cast will be there. So
Oh wow,
Oh, nice.
God, can we real quick just give Kevin a huge shout out to how something that's like, because the original Clerks was such a cultural icon, phenomenon, but to get to a third movie and to what I think is the best of the trilogy,
yeah,
that was such a funny but impactful film. Well
was,
done.
it was a great mix of 1 and 2, in my opinion.
I
And,
agree.
very
Yeah.
emotional. If you haven't seen it, it's on DVD and streaming now.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything, but I cried. I
Yeah,
cried.
it's very, it's a tearjerker.
It's
for
so
sure.
good.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. Definitely check that one out. I mean, I'll be all over the map. I'm usually, Houston in the summer. I'll be in LA. I didn't think I had this much booked next year, but I just looked. I was like, I'm pretty busy. So, and what it boils down to, if someone invites you to a Comic-Con, like you go. It's just,
Yeah.
like why wouldn't you go? So I'm gonna go to as many as I can.
That's just awesome, man.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So I'm definitely gonna check out that Pensacola one.
Yeah, you'll love it.
When we get off here,
You'll
I'll probably email them to get about press access to see
Yeah.
about getting in.
Yeah, not only will you love
That's-
it, you're like, well, that's cool. I'm gonna go every year now. So it's that good.
That's awesome. And then of course there's Smoky Mountain coming up later this year. There's all the different ones, of course, New York Comic Con.
Yep.
There's
New
so
York
many
City,
things coming up.
Emerald City. Yeah, they're all over, my friends. So
Emerald, oh god, Emerald City's a good one too.
really good one.
The thing is, like, it's hard to find a bad one nowadays. Like they've all
Yeah.
really stepped up their game. So if
Yeah,
you're a
they have
fan,
to. They have
Yeah.
to as word gets out. So you really gotta throw a good show if you want to keep going. So
yeah.
Mhm.
So if you're a fan and you happen to find one locally, even if it's a small time one, just go.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
a good time. You don't know who you might meet. It's well worth it. So definitely go check it out.
yeah,
Well, Ming, I want to thank you so much for joining
Yeah,
us. This has
thank you
been
guys, man.
absolutely phenomenal.
Geeks and Noobs for life, my friends.
Absolutely. And we will definitely come see you in New York or in
Okay.
New Jersey.
Well, yeah, let's podcast. Let's do it in person.
Absolutely.
Let's do
It's
that.
going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. Everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning in for our 40th episode, by the way. So that was also a big deal. So thank you so much for being on our 40th episode. And this is how we're going to finish off the year. We're going to be off until January. We will see you when the new year rolls around. And we love you guys. Kisses, hugs, and belly rubs. Thanks to the great Kevin Pereira. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ming.
Yeah, you got it, man. Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas.